Hello, my name is Ramses. In case you don't know me, I've been following Okam for a while. I think it's fair to describe me as a fan of some sort of it. I recently made a video about the changes on the Steam store page and got some good feedback on that, so I thought it was timely and apt for me to make a video about the strategic map, because I don't think you can expect anybody to harass the developers as much as I do and ask them questions all the time. So here's like my list of 5 items that I think we should expect in the strategic map and what we shouldn't expect in the first version. So let's jump straight to it. Number 1, the new epic. The strategic map will essentially be the new developer team's epic. So the previous team failed to provide us the epic, and this is sort of the new team's attempt to recreate that and to kind of fulfill the promise of what was initially promised and with the epic and all that sort of things. But there's going to be a key difference, at least initially. The epic was 3 layers. There was the overview map, where you moved armies around and where you constructed towns and stuff like that. Then there was the open world layer, where you would log into a server where you would kind of zoom in on one part of the map and you would be able to walk around in that area and develop towns or simply interact with other players and stuff like that, called the open world aspect. And finally, there's also the battles themselves. So if 2 armies on the overview map moved together into some kind of close proximity, there would be a battle where you would then again zoom in a little bit like the open world, but just in a smaller location, where the 2 armies would then battle it out, or similar for sieges or anything like. That's not what we're getting with the strategic map. The strategic map will have 2 layers. There will be the overview map, and there will be the battles. But the open world aspect is not currently planned for the strategic map. Now, the developers have made it clear that they're not excluding the open world feature, but they're definitely not focusing on it right now. It is also fair to say that the 2 layers was the only thing that was promised for the epic in the first version of the epic. The whole open world aspect wasn't going to be there for a long time. It was a mistake of them to show it perhaps in the Vision trailer, but it was quite clear if you read the description of the trailer that it was a vision. It was something far away that they wanted to achieve eventually. But that's not what we're getting here in the beginning. There have, however, been hints about open world features elsewhere, like the wilderness aspect of the lobby map. But no matter what, if there's going to be open world features, it is still quite far away. Number 2, the map. The map will be divided into hexagonal tiles, just like the epic was, which is like what's that called? Shapes with 6 corners, I believe, or something like that. Just like the epic was, basically. But more importantly, the size of the map, the number of tiles, so to speak, will be dynamic. So the more players or the more clans there are in the map or in the strategic map, the larger the map will be, and vice versa. The smaller it is, the smaller the map will be. And this works by generating a new portion of the map automatically every time a new clan joins. And this is incredibly good news for all regions if they can make a good terrain generator. Because this basically means that small regions will not have to wander about for each other for endless times, while more populated regions are choked. This basically means if you have a small region, like for example Australia might quite possibly be a pretty small region, you would have a pretty small map, but it would still be interesting. There would be a few clans battling out, whereas Europe, which quite possibly will have the largest region, will have a much larger map with much more space for different clans and everything in between that. So I think North Americans, for example, might have a reasonably sized map, but not something huge. And this is great news. I really like this part. Number 3, the battles. Battles will initially only be settlement battles, as field battles are not yet implemented. Settlement layout will, like the map itself, be automatically generated. Once again, we're hoping for a good generator. Later on, development will make more customization for settlements available. If you've been playing Strategos from CRPG, the way the battles work will sound very familiar to you because it's basically the same system. But if you haven't, you might want to listen for this part. The battles will play a lot like the current raid mode battles. Before the battle, you first need to gather a sufficient number of troops. You then march to the village, and then you initiate an attack. There'll usually be like a button on the UI somewhere saying attack. You are then assigned a time slot, probably 24 hours later or so. And it should be in the region's prime time. And it might not exactly be 24 hours, because if you attack in the middle of the night, it might not take the earliest prime time, but it might take a day later prime time, so it might be a little bit more than 24 hours, it might be a little bit less, but something along those lines. And so you now have a day or so to recruit as many players as you can in your armies. Players that might be interested in fighting in the battle will sign up for you, and you have to accept them. The settlement will do the same, automatically if it's unowned, but manually if it's owned by a clan, then the settlement owner, or perhaps the clan leader, will accept players for the defending side. And then 24 hours later, the battle itself will commence. Everyone that are accepted for either teams should be in game, and they can then join the server, and then they will automatically be put into the correct teams. The battle then fights like raid. Attackers have to take all the flanks or kill all the defenders' troops to win, and defenders have to kill all attackers' troops or hold long enough for the time to run out. Whenever a soldier on either side dies, this removes a troop from the team. So for example, if the defending team has 100 troops and 10 players, there will only ever be 10 players present at a time. There will not be, like for example, 10 players and 90 bots or something. No. There will only be 10 players. Whenever a player then dies, this removes one troop from the total troop count, but the player will then respawn. So that means that you'll have 10 players, 100 troops. One player dies, you'll have 9 players for a moment. You will then have one less troops, so it will go from 100 to 99, and then the player will respawn, bringing you back to 10 players. This means that battles will not only be about taking and holding ground, but it will also be about killing the opposition. So, to summarize, first, you gather troops. Second, you march to the settlement and attack. Third, you wait 24 hours while you sign up players on your side. And fourth, you join the server when the battle starts, and you then fight. Now then, resources. So far, only gold and troops have been confirmed. The devs have been talking about other resources, but we might not see them before later in the game. Troops is obviously used to make armies. Gold will be used for upkeep initially until an economical system is set in place. So it will be very basic in terms of resources and economy here in the first version, but we can expect much more to come later. And lastly, diplomacy. Diplomacy will be completely free and player driven, like the old Strategus. Bring on the hate, the tears and the rage. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. It sounds like this first version of the strategic map is quite bare bones, but more is surely to come. The devs have said that this is supposed to be the main mode of the game, so it's certain that they will spend at least quite some time on it. But anyway, thanks for watching. I hope that this was informative in some way for you. And really do ask any questions. I'll try to get back to you as quickly as possible. Until then, see you next time.